Hey everyone, this is Brian from ActiveMelody.com. Well, this week we're going to take a look at a Stevie Ray Vaughan style Texas Shuffle. And while most of this lesson is really rhythmic based, there are a few lead notes thrown in as well. So there's a little bit of both of that. You can do this on an acoustic or an electric guitar. If you want to download the tablature, you can do that, as well as the MP3 jam tracks that you can practice along. The same jam track that I used in the intro. And I've actually got it in two tempos, so you can get the slow version or the up to speed version. You can get all of that at ActiveMelody.com. Just look for EP061. That's the lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and take a look at part 1. Alright, so we are playing in the key of A. And remember, when we play in the key of A, our root fret, which is home bass, is the 5th fret. And the reason the 5th fret is the root fret is because that's the fret we would bar if we're playing an A bar chord. And I only mention that because pattern 1 then, so when we're playing the blues minor, or the minor pentatonic scale rather, you can see my pointer finger plays all those notes there on the 5th fret. So that's kind of, this becomes home bass. There's 5 patterns when we're talking about the minor pentatonic scale, and all of that's covered in the blues lead course, which is available at ActiveMelody.com if you're interested. Okay, so that sets up the parameters for where we're at, and now let's get into the first thing that's played. Now, the very first lick that I do is I go, and so it's weird. I'm only playing 2 notes, so it's not really a chord. It's more of really more like a power chord because you're only playing those 2 notes. But let me explain why these notes work. The first thing that somebody's going to catch is they're going to say, wait a minute, that's in the minor pentatonic scale, but that note is not. And you'd be right. This note is not in the minor pentatonic scale for the key of A, but it's in the major pentatonic scale. And here's just a quick refresher on that. So minor pentatonic scale is here. Remember, root fret's here. To get to the major pentatonic scale of a key, we shift everything down towards the head 3 steps. So we go 1, 2, 3. So now we can play that same pattern, and now we're playing in the major key. So now it has a happier sound when you're playing over the A blues. So I only mention that because this note is one of the 2 that I'm going to use to slide in. So this note is in the major scale, this note is in the minor scale, and it's the weird combination when you play the 2 together that give it kind of that 7th sound. It sounds very bluesy, but anyway, that's why it works. So both notes actually are in proper scales, they're just played in different scales. So okay, so let's go over what these notes are. We start here on the 5th fret, 3rd string, and I use my, actually when I do these I use my ring finger for that. It's just easier to jump into the other licks for me to use my ring finger for that. Okay, so that's 5th fret, 3rd string. Now I use my pointer finger on the 4th fret, 4th string, and I'm just playing strings 4 and 3, playing both of those together, and I'm doing a downstroke with my pick. And as soon as I play it, I slide them both up 1 fret. So we're going to come up this way, 1 fret, so that you end up with your pointer finger on the 5th fret, 4th string, and your ring finger on the 6th fret, 3rd string. Now, before I show you the rest of the licks, let me just show you I always think of these things in kind of, well, not always, but in this case, I guess, it's a sort of a call and response. So the call would be, and then the response would be, and then the call would be. So you're kind of, the call sort of sets the chord, and then the response is some little licks setting the chord, and it gives you these parameters. And that works really well. I've learned to do that just because I play by myself a lot, and when you're playing by yourself, you don't always have the band to sort of fill in the rest of the notes, so you have to do it yourself. But it works really nice with a band, so with a jam track this will sound really good. So okay, so that becomes the A part of the song. If I slide it down here, which is where we started, that becomes the D part of the song. Back to the A part. Now when we go to the E, look, check this out. I just slide up one more time. That becomes the E, or the E7th. Hear it? And then we're back down to the D, and then we're back to the A. Now this is a cool little thing to remember, so when you're playing, even when you're playing lead, whether you're playing lead or rhythm, it doesn't really matter. You can always kind of, I use that a lot when I'm sliding into something, you know, and it doesn't matter what key you're in. If you're in the key of G, now that, you know, just remember your root fret and how these play off of the root fret, so it would be... Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now let's go, and I'm going to get into the specifics. So that's the first thing we do, is we slide up to the A part. Okay, so then the next thing that I play is I play... So let's learn that. Now, I'm going to show you the left hand first, then I'm going to show you what's going on with the right hand. It's very important that you get the strumming of this right. With the right hand, let me slide into frame better. So, left hand, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you think of, I visualize the D7th shape. You know when we play a D7th down in first position? Hopefully you've played that by now. That's the same shape that we're going to use here. It's also, Hendrix uses it in Red House. But it's really just another way to play an A7th chord. And so this is something that'll be very handy. You'll use this a lot in your playing once you get this and see how it all relates to the root fret. So let's make the chord. So we're going to take our ring finger and our middle finger, and we're going to put both of those down on the 9th fret. So the ring finger goes down on the 9th fret, 1st string. Middle finger goes down on the 9th fret, 3rd string. So you're kind of straddling the 2nd string there. Now we're going to take our pointer finger and go down on the 8th fret, 2nd string, and so that's that little D7th shape. But the thing is, to get to that, I slide into it like this. That's the first thing that happens. It gives it kind of a nice, you know, sort of a bluesy effect to slide in. Plus, we just slid in down here, and so back to that call and response thing, we're kind of repeating what we did, you know, from one octave to the other. Okay, so after we play that, then we're going to come down and we're going to take a ring finger and play. We're going to bar the first 3 strings on the 7th fret and play those just like that. Don't worry about the right hand yet. Let's just get the fretted notes, and then we'll come back to the right hand. Now I do this little hammer-on thing, and you see me doing this a lot. This is, and what you're doing is you're completing that major chord there, the major A chord. So I just go ahead and bar the first 3 strings on the 5th fret, just like we did on the 7th fret. But the difference is, as soon as you play them, you're only playing strings 1, 2, and 3. As soon as you play them, you hammer on with your middle finger onto the 6th fret, 3rd string. And you'll hear that kind of a bluesy thing. And you hear a lot of piano players using those little fills like that. So that's what we've learned. We've got... Okay? Now when I did it, I went 1, 2, and 1. So that's 1, 2, and 1. So let's do that. So as soon as we do that hammer on, I'm going to go ahead and do an upstroke. Now we're going to start getting to the right hand. So downstroke, upstroke. We're back to barring the first 3 strings on the 7th fret. And then back to the little hammer on. So it's... Just practice that. Now that right there is a great blues lick. So hopefully what you're learning in this lesson is I'm teaching all these little words. Now we're gonna, in the end, you'll be able to make a sentence, you know, which will be the whole solo. But just know that you're learning a new vocabulary, and every time you learn one of these words, hopefully you'll be able to take this and go to Active Melody, grab another jam track. This is what I would do. You know, pick another song in another key, another tempo, and everything, and try and work in licks like that and licks like this, and how they all correlate. So now that you know the root fret, being here, and you know that this, you know how that plays around the root fret, so kind of where it is in vicinity to the root fret. You also know where this is in vicinity to the root fret. So if the root fret is here, the little D7th shape starts here. So you would, here's how I would think of it. You know, here's the root fret. I would skip a fret, and then I would come to the next fret, and I would use my pointer finger on the second string, and then I would build around it to be able to make that chord. And so this then that's just another way that you're playing an A7th chord. So A7, you know, usually when you're playing blues, you get these 7th chords. Here how it sounds different. Here's an A major. Here's the 7th. Or you can play it down here. But it's got a much bluesier sound to it. And this is that same chord played an octave higher. Now you're only using 3 strings, but it's still a chord. So that's just another way to voice that 7th chord. And that'll work with any song. So if you're in another key, you can see how you can start to work that into your playing. Same with licks like that. Okay. All right, now let's get into what the right hand was doing here. So the first thing we had, remember, we'll go all the way back. We had... Now, another thing I should mention, I give it some vibrato when I'm playing this. Now, vibrato is when you kind of, you know, shake your left hand to you're simulating the human voice. You know, when somebody sings and their voice starts to wobble and they're holding a note. That's really all you're doing. And so that took me a lot of time, and that's another whole lesson in and of itself, creating vibrato. But I'm just using, in that case, I'm just kind of. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. It's all kind of in the wrist there. Now, if I'm doing a single note, I won't use my wrist. I'll actually use this part of my, you know, that joint. So the wrist stays locked. It just depends on what you're doing, but that's how I've got that effect. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now we're going to come up here. Now here's how I'm doing this with the right hand. I go and do an upstroke. So before we do the upstroke, there's a downstroke. That's a muted downstroke, like that. And that gives it a rhythmic quality. Let me show you what I mean. Watch this. In fact, there's 2. Now that I do it, I can see that if I'm doing it slowly, I might do 1. But when I'm playing it up to tempo, I'm going... So I'm doing an upstroke and a downstroke. And all that's doing is it's just going ahead and getting the rhythm going with your right hand. Because what you want to be able to do is just keep the rhythm going. You don't want to sit and try and pick it apart. It'll sound way too robotic. And if you watch you know, somebody like Stevie Ray play, his right hand, when he's playing these kind of shuffle things, it's just going. It almost looks magical. It looks like he was so good at that, and I'm not nearly, you know, I'm not nearly that at that level. But I do know that to keep it going, you've got to keep the right hand in motion. So the first thing you're going to want to do is try and mute that, and that's just, you know, putting your hand on the frets without actually pushing down to get a little muted sound. So when we play that, it's an upstroke. Then that's a downstroke. There's another upstroke that's a mute. Let me do this real slowly. We'll just watch the right hand. It just never stops. So that's what you're going to want to practice. Just know it starts, that part starts in an upstroke. And then once you do that, don't stop with the right hand. Okay, so let's go back. Now for that, I stopped it. Notice that time I did an upstroke. My hand came down. Watch my right hand. It goes. I do an upstroke, so I kind of put my pick in here at the 3rd string, and I pull up to do an upstroke. Stop it. Pull up again to do another upstroke. And that just keeps the rhythm going because it's 2 upstrokes. So if you watch the rhythm on my right hand, so that's to practice that part. You're going to want to go. Up, so it's up, up. And kind of, if you see my pick, it's kind of going in right there. This is the 3rd string, so the pick is going in, and I'm kind of pulling it at an angle like this, just to hit those 2. Now, when you're new to this, you may accidentally hit more strings, but just try and get it concentrated where you can go and get real precise with it. Okay. Now, we go backwards. So now this is just the opposite. So before we came up like this, now we're going to go back, which is pretty easy. It's just going back to where we started. Again, with the vibrato that happens. Now watch this, then I go. Now this is easy to do with the left hand because all we're doing is barring the first 3 strings, and we're starting on the 5th fret, so we're going to go 5th, 7th, we're going to slide up to the 8th, so we're going to go 5th, 7th, slide, 7th, 5th. Now you don't have to slide, but the slide is it's these little things, these little nuances that make your playing sound really good. So if you don't slide, sounds okay, but it's doing those slides though that really give it the soul. Okay, so let's look at what the right hand is doing. So the left hand is pretty straightforward on that. Again, watch this, it's just up and down. Let me do it slowly. So that's it. It's just practicing that up and down. So let me back up all the way from to the beginning, and I'll play up to that point. I'll do it slowly. Okay, and now we're back to just like we did in the intro, same notes. And then this is the same lick. So that doesn't change, that's easy. Now we come back and go. So this time we start here with the pointer finger on the 5th fret, 4th string. Ring fingers on the 6th fret, 3rd string. But we're going to slide this way, which is now playing the E 7th chord. Although we're just playing 2, so it's kind of a power chord. Okay, so after we did the call for the E, the response goes. So for that, so after the call, then I come up here and I put my middle finger down on the 3rd fret, 2nd string, and I slide it up. So I'm going to play strings 2 and 1, and then I'm going to slide my middle finger all the way up to the 5th fret, 2nd string. And so what you're doing is you're matching this note on this fret. are on the string. And that's a Jimmy Vaughan thing. He does a lot of those kind of things where he'll slide from one and then match the same note and play this note on the string above it. I think it sounds really cool. Another place you can do it here is on playing the strings 2 and 3. You can slide from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. So just remember that if you're playing. It gives you some options when you're playing an E. So since we switched to the E part of the song, or the 5 chord, all the licks that I played are in the key of E. Now that can be confusing to some people, and that was confusing to me. Typically when you're playing, since the song is in the key of A, everything we do can be in the key of A. We don't have to leave that key. It's always going to make sense and it's always going to work. So back to the minor pentatonic, for example. Any of those little licks we play, it doesn't matter if the chord switches to the 5 chord and goes to the E chord. It's all going to work. However, there's sometimes it has a different feel and can be pretty powerful when the song, especially on the 5 chord, when you switch to, in this case, the E chord, to switch the scale to match that chord. So now we would switch to the E scale. Now you couldn't stay there for long. You can only stay there for the duration of that chord. So as soon as the chord goes back to the A, if I'm still playing in the key of E, it's going to sound horrible. But when it does go to the 5 chord to work in, something in that key, just for that moment in the solo, it actually sounds kind of cool. So that's something that you can do. You don't have to do, but it happens from time to time and sounds pretty good. Okay, so once we come to the E part, and that's what I did here, is I switched to the E. I went. So let's look at what's going on here. So outside of this thing, when I play this, that is the same as, you see it's exactly the same thing. It's just slid down here to play it around E, because our root fret in the key of E is the nut. Okay, so like if we're playing an E, you can't, so think of an E bar chord, well, down here in first position you can't because you're out of room, but the nut is, so that is a bar chord in essence. So if you think of it that way, the nut then becomes your root fret. So if you're playing in the key of E, the minor pentatonic scale looks like this. Because this is your kind of your root fret, where all those, when you're playing with your pointer finger, all those notes your pointer finger covers, it's being covered here. So when we do this and slide up here and play that lick, it's the same as this. So now that should help you visualize why we're here and how we got here and how it correlates. So it's the same concept. You're just going to start your D7th shape here by straddling your ring finger and your middle finger on the 3rd fret, 1st and 3rd string. Pointer finger goes down on the 2nd fret, 2nd string. And then we're going to slide in, just like we did for the A7. Now we're going to bar the first 3 strings on the 2nd string, just like we did up here on the 7th string. Now we're going to go. So we're going to do the hammer-on. So we're only playing strings 2 and 3 here. But as soon as I play them, I'm going to hammer on. And notice this is the same thing that we did here on the A part. So hopefully this is, some light bulbs are going off out there, and you can start to see what this can do in terms of your playing, because now that you know this little secret, that you can always work in you can switch the scale to the chord in the song, as long as you're just there for that moment in the song. it gives you a lot of opportunity to play different things. So you could do that, and then when it goes to the D part, for example, instead of playing, I could have came up here and went. In fact, that would be a nice way to do this lesson. And then down to the E part. See, it's all hinging off that root fret. So, okay, I tend to divert a little bit, but I hope it's helpful. Okay, and then we're back. All right, now let me back up. I'll play all of that slowly. So here we go. Let's start it from the beginning. So we have. And you could just keep repeating that over and over again. Now, if you don't have the jam track, you definitely want to download that. And as I said in the intro, I have it in 2 versions. So if this is this is new to you and it's too fast, start with the slower version and just try and play along with it, and get it where you can do it kind of fluidly, and then graduate on to the actual tempo. But that's really all there is to that first part. Make sure you go to activemelody.com, check out EP061, and I'll show you how to play the whole second part. All the fun bluesy licks.